Okay, now I need you to listen to me. There are a lot of steps here. It's easy to get bogged down in this. And this whole slide is going to be full by the time we're done. Do not get bogged down in the whole process. Take one step at a time. So I'm going to have these steps written out nice and neat. It's actually all typed out so that my handwriting doesn't get you distracted. And you're going to just write these steps down so you have access to them so you can see them, and just follow these steps. So the first thing you're going to do, you're going to be given a set of equations. And normally, any other textbook I've ever seen writes them with this little squiggly parenthesis connecting them together so that you know they go together. And really what you're doing is you have two lines here. If I were to put these in y equals mx plus b and graph them, these two lines would intersect somewhere. So like if this was my graph, this was a line, this was a line. Here's the intersection. What we're doing is solving for that value there. And there's 100 bajillion ways to solve for that. This first one we're going to learn is technically, I'm not even sure what this one's called actually, but this is the just introduction. You won't have a lot that will work out like this, but there's several ways. So when you get to one that works this way, you can do it. We're going to start at the very beginning and work our way harder in this. Now this is Algebra 1, so we're not going to learn all of them in Algebra 1. We will add more to it in Algebra 2. We're going to do a couple of the most basic ones now, and then you'll see more next year in Algebra 2. So here are our steps. Number 1, we are going to rearrange these equations so that they are both equal to 0. They're both y equals form. So my top one, I have to move the -3 over, and I have to move the 2 over. I've got to move this over, and I've got to move this over. On this one, I got to move this and this over, and what I end up with, my top one becomes y equals positive 3x, because that negative becomes a plus, minus 2, because the plus becomes a minus. On the bottom equation, I need to move the 2x and the -3, so I end up with negative 2x plus 3. I'm looking at your lesson here, and yeah, you may have a few where you're going to have to divide and end up with a fraction. So we'll see as we go on with this. But most of them for your homework are going to be already y by themselves, okay? So we've set them equal to 0. That's not at all the right words. We've set them equal to y. We've rearranged both equations to y equals 4. Step 2, if they're both y, then we're going to set them equal to each other. Y and y are the same thing, which means this value is equal to this value. 4 equals 4. 17 equals 17. 1 million equals 1 million. Negative 23.23 equals negative 23.23. So we can say that y equals y because their values match. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this equal to this. So set them equal to each other. Let me clean up this mess. Okay. So I've taken my first equation, 3x minus 2, equals my second equation, negative 2 plus 3. So step 1, set both equal to 0. Step 2, set them equal to themselves, or to each other, I'm sorry. And now we're going to just solve for x, which means I've got to get all my x's this way, all my numbers this way. Okay, so we're going to solve for x. Move the negative 2x over, becomes positive. Move the negative 2 over, becomes positive. Then I just add my like terms. 3x plus 2x is 5x. 3 plus 2 is 5. I have to move this 5 over. When I do, I divide because I'm multiplying on the left. 5 divided by 5 is 1. Now, we're not done because we have two variables. We have an x and a y. So I have to solve for x and y. I have to solve for both of those. Higher level, you'll have an x, a y, and a z, and you'll have to solve for all three. But for today, just x and y. So my next step is to take what I just found. I just found x equals 1. I'm going to plug that into one of these equations, and I'm going to solve it for y. I can pick any equation. I can pick this one, or I can pick this one. And I'm going to plug this value in, and I'm going to solve for y. It does not matter which equation you pick. When you solve both of them, you're going to end up with the same value. So I picked this one because it's a positive. So x is 1. I'm going to just plug in instead of, so I have 3x. Oh, goodness, I don't know what that was. I have 3x minus 2. Well, x equals -1. So I'm going to just replace that value. So 3 times 1, because we found x to be 1, minus 2. 3 times 1 is 3. 3 minus 2 is 1. So step 1, set both equal to y. Step 2, set them equal to each other. Step 3, solve for x. Step 4, plug that value into one of those equations and solve for y. Now remember, I told you what you're solving for is the point of intersection, or the point where those two lines cross. So you're going to write your answer as a coordinate point. And remember, it's always x, y. So this is my technical answer. Now here's the thing, that's a lot of stuff. I know these are tedious. The math of this is not hard. When you hit some fraction ones, they're going to be a little bit trickier, but the math of this is not hard. It's just a lot of things to do. Do not get bogged down in where you are. Write those steps down somewhere where you can see them, so as you're working through your work, you can reference back to it. Let's do one, and I am going to do one that's going to end up, and I'm trying to even think if that's even a fraction. I don't think it's a fraction, but hold on. Let me look at this and come back to you in just a second. All right, let's do one more. So here's our two equations. 3x minus y equals 5. 4x minus 2 equals 2y equals 8. Step 1, solve both of these for y. Now my problem is going to be this bottom one. Well, first of all, the top one also, because there's a negative. So let's walk through this. Excuse me. On my top equation, we're going to move the 3x over. But then I still have a negative right here. So pay attention. When there's a negative there, don't forget there's an understood 1. So technically what I'm going to do is I'm going to technically divide everything by -1. What that means is I can just change the signs of everything. So my top becomes y equals 3x minus 5. Okay? And then I'm going to move my 4x over from my bottom one. And that becomes -2y equals -4x plus 8. Then I have to get rid of this, so I'm going to divide everything by -2. -4 divided by -2 is 2. 8 divided by -2 is -4. So there's my second equation. Okay? So remember, when you have multiple terms, you have to divide everything by that. And watch those negatives. Step 2, let me kind of clean this up for a second. Step 2 is to set them equal to each other. Y equals y. So I'm going to have 3x minus 5 equals 2x minus 4 because y equals y. 3x minus 5 equals 2x minus 4. So step 1, solve both for y. Put them both in y equals form. Step 2, set them to equal to each other. Well, I should have put step 3 here, and solve. Move your x's over, move your whole numbers over. My understood plus 2x becomes minus. My minus 5 becomes plus 5. 3x minus 2x is 1x. -4 plus 5 is 1. 1x equals 1, and 1x is the same thing as x, so x equals 1. There's my first part. So step 1, solve for y. Step 2, y equals y, and then solve it. I gotta sneeze. And then only 2, there we go. Step 3, or step next, plug that value back into one of the equations and solve. Now we can pick either equation we want to use. I used my pen. Oh, there it is. I used this equation, plugged in x value, and then solved it. 3 times 1 is 1. 3 times 1 is 3. 3 minus 5 is -2. Now remember, we are looking for the point of intersection. So it's x, y, and this is the format for your answers. All right, one more here. And y'all, I want you to try it on your own. So pause the video, try it, and then we're going to come back and walk through it. All right, you've all tried this, right? So let's work through it. I'm going to do it kind of quickly. Step 1, solve them for y. You should end up with y equals 3x plus 5. Your bottom one should be y equals 4x plus 6. Remember, when I moved everything over, they became negative, but because I have a negative y here, change the sign of everything. Step 2, y equals y. So I'm going to set them equal to each other. 3x plus 5 equals 4x plus 6, and I'm going to solve it. And I should have ended up with x equals -1. When I moved the 4x over, it became negative. When I moved the 5 over, it became negative. And then right here, I have to divide by -1. 1 divided by -1 is -1. Next, plug that value in. And just for the sake of, because I did, I solved this one. So if I did that bottom one, you'll end up with 4 times -1 plus 6, which is -4 plus 6, which is y equals 2. However, had I solved it by my top, I would have ended up with the exact same thing. So it doesn't matter which one you use. And then my answer has to be in the coordinate, so it's x, which is -1, and y, which is 2. So there is my answer. So hopefully these are making a little bit more sense. And like I said, I know there's a lot of steps in here. Just take it one piece at a time. All right, I'm going to have you do 1 and 2 from lesson 115, which is pages 253 and 254. It's only 6 problems, so you have 3 on the classwork side, and then you have 3 on activity 2. The last one, I believe, is going to have a fraction. Don't freak out. Just follow the steps and do your best. And that's it this week.